Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, 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 and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, namaste, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening study and discussion, reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Our reader is Haima Naidu. Thank you so very much, Haima. And she will tell us where we are, and unless there are some comments or questions left from last week's reading and discussion, if there are any, please do. If there is a comment or concern or question, please raise it. All right, Haima, dear, please lead on and tell us where we are and begin the reading.
Good evening and namaste, everyone. We are on the PDF, page 21, and the first vision of Kali. That's where we should be starting. But I just want to go back just a few lines so that it will connect better and give us a little refresh our minds where we left off last week. Mathur, that is Sri Ramakrishna's the temple person, begged Sri Ramakrishna.
Can't talk now, I'm in class.
Mathur begged Sri Ramakrishna to take charge of the worship in the Kali temple. The young priest pleaded his incompetence and his ignorance of the scriptures. Mathur insisted that devotion and sincerity would more than compensate for any lack of formal knowledge and make the Divine Mother manifest herself through the image. In the end, Sri Ramakrishna had to yield to Mathur's request. He became the priest of Kali. In 1856, Ram Kumar, that is Sri Ramakrishna's brother, breathed his last. Sri Ramakrishna had already witnessed more than one death in the family. He had come to realize how impermanent is life on earth. The more he was convinced of the transitory nature of worldly things, the more eager he became to realize God, the fountain of immortality. Now we are moving to the first vision of Kali. And indeed, he soon discovered what a strange goddess he had chosen to serve. He became gradually enmeshed in the web of her all-pervading presence. To the ignorant, she is, to be sure, the image of destruction. But he found in her the benign, all-loving mother. Her neck is encircled with a garland of heads, and her waist with a girdle of human arms, and two of her hands hold weapons of death, and her eyes dart a glance of fire. But strangely enough, Ramakrishna felt in her breath the soothing touch of tender love and saw in her the seed of immortality. She stands on the bosom of her consort Shiva It is because she is the Shakti, the power inseparable from the Absolute. She is surrounded by jackals and other unholy creatures, the denizens of the cremation ground, but is not the ultimate reality above holiness and unholiness. She appears to be reeling under the spell of wine. But who would create this mad world unless under the influence of a divine drunkenness? She is the highest symbol of all the forces of nature, the synthesis of their antonyms, the ultimate divine in the form of woman.
Okay, hold on just one moment.
Sure.
Is there anyone who would disagree with the idea that this is a mad world that she has created? A world of strange and unpredictable, unimaginable events and activities, both in our own lives and in the lives of the people we see immediately around us, and then as we look out into the world. Is there anyone who sincerely disagrees with the idea that this is a mad world? Because this is a key idea in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, that this mad sport, this mad Leela of the mother is what we're dealing with. And so his way of looking at it and dealing with it is meant as a suggestion to us to model our thinking and therefore our speech and our behavior on those ideas.
Yes, I would disagree with that.
Okay. Why, Robert?
Because if we're not the doer, then that would say that the Supreme Being is mad.
Which is precisely what Sri Ramakrishna says, that Mother as the creatrix and dominatrix of the universe is indeed.
We have to experience everything that we can experience in order to know. We have to get it wrong before we can get it right.
This is a recurrent theme with you, Robert, and who can argue with that? But if we read what is said about the mother, both in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and in other scriptures, we see that though what is behind is perfection itself, the world of duality, of time, space, and causation in which we live, though it may be, as you say, illusory that we are not the doer, nevertheless, it's certainly, you'd be very hard-pressed to tell the people of Ukraine that everything is perfect. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm simply saying there is another point of view, and it is the one that's represented by Sri Ramakrishna, as we'll see as we develop this. Though, as it is said, he sees behind it this perfection, this divine presence of Mother, the loving and benign consciousness. But on the surface, there is the terrible form of Mother as Kali, as it was just described.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
This is Jeff. if I recall correctly, when we reached this passage last week, I somehow brought up the topic of intelligent design.
Yes.
And I wrestled with it. I continued to wrestle with it all the past week. And I came to the conclusion, tell me if I'm anywhere close to the truth on this. I came to the conclusion that if this is all God's dream, it's like any other dream that has, which can have goodness and perfection and madness and torment and everything else you can think of, all in the same world, or at least in the same, all in the same dream, and if not in the same dream world. So that's the only way I can come to terms with what I have just rambled about.
And it was not a ramble at all, Jeff. It was very well said. And indeed, the reason, as we understand it from here, the reason this dream, which does seem both mad and perfect, the reason it is so convincing and compelling is that it is Brahman's dream. Brahman said, I am one, I shall become many. I shall body myself forth as many. These are the very words of the Chandogya Upanishad. And so the dream began. And Vivekananda insists to us that it is a dream, a myth. It is not a substantial reality. It is a lesser reality made of bits and pieces of disconnected and incoherent dream. So I cannot but endorse what you've said, Jeff. You wrestled it to the floor, as it were. That's it. It is the dream of the divine being. As Robert pointed out, however, because we are the divine being behind this, we are that. We are not the doer. The doer is Mother, this Shakti, this Maya. So behind the seeming madness and incoherence of this dream is that infinite, eternal, changeless being, Nirguna Atman, or Brahman. Now, none of this, of course, can make logical left mind sense. That's not the function of the left mind as it is understood. Both from the science of a Jill Bolte Taylor and from the scriptures of Sankhya, and for that matter, Advaita. Any comment or discussion about that?
I would just say that, can we agree that the ephemeral world appears as madness?
That's certainly how it seems from here. And it is occasionally maddening. Profoundly so. Thank you, Glenn. That was right on the money. Anything else from anyone before Haima reads on?
Brother Shankara, I have a comment. Even Orthodox Christianity agrees with the same view. What I was reading in the Way of Pilgrim,
Yes.
the pilgrim said, the grace of God distributes his gift in wisdom to every person, severally according to that person's strength. That's what he said according to scriptures, exactly what we are talking about. I mean, he created all three gunas in the world in many different people according to their strength, it seems. Some has tama, some has sattva, some has rajoguna. So now we are trying to find happiness
And those
beyond.
gunas, even in the illumined, it is said, those gunas, as long as there is prarabdha karma, as long as they remain embodied, those gunas will make themselves felt. So it's not as if they simply evaporate for the illumined. No, as long as there's embodiment, there is everything that goes along with the time, space, and causation aspect of having a Stardust spacesuit. Anything else from anyone? All right, thank you for that comment, Haima. That's right on the money. So if there isn't anything else, then we can read on.
She is the highest symbol of all the forces of nature, the synthesis of their antonyms, the ultimate divine in the form
The
of
synthesis of their what again, dear?
antonyms. Did I say it right?
Well,
Antonyms.
antinomies.
Antonyms, yes.
It means opposites.
Opposites, yes.
Yeah.
Antonyms. The synthesis of their antonyms, the ultimate divine in the form of woman. She now became to Sri Ramakrishna the only reality, and the world became an unsubstantial shadow. Into her worship, he poured his soul. Before him, she stood as the transparent portal to the shrine of ineffable reality.
Now, the world became shadow-like or dream-like for Sri Ramakrishna.
Yes.
As he worshipped Kali, the world became shadow-like. This is what Swami Vivekananda means when he says it's mythological. It's dreamlike. So the mother, but her essence, not her manifestation as the world, but her essence became the reality for Sri Ramakrishna. So read those lines again, please, dear.
Sure. He now became to Sri Ramakrishna the only reality, and the world became an unsubstantial shadow. Into her worship, he poured his soul. Before him, she stood as the transparent portal to the shrine of ineffable reality. The worship in the temple intensified Sri Ramakrishna's yearning for a living vision of the mother of the universe. He began to spend in meditation the time not actually employed in the temple service. And for this purpose, he selected an extremely solitary place, a deep jungle, thick with underbrush and prickly plants, lay to the north of the temples. Used at one time as a burial ground, it was shunned by people even during the daytime for fear of ghosts. There, Sri Ramakrishna began to spend the whole night in meditation, returning to his room only in the morning with the eyes swollen as though from much weeping.
Now, why was Sri Ramakrishna comfortable in such a situation? We have to remember that from his youth, particularly after his father departed the body, Sri Ramakrishna spent time in cremation grounds. He meditated there. He spent time in isolation and in contemplation, concentration, and meditation there. So ghosts were nothing new to him. Shrieking, horrid ghosts were nothing that fazed him in the least. So this is why he was comfortable in this place in the dead of night that people would shun even in the daytime for fear of the for fear of what they would encounter there. So, and it's one of the reasons that he went there, so that he would not be disturbed by other people. So any comments or questions about this particular aspect of Sri Ramakrishna's life, the fact that he had spent significant amounts of time from his youth. When he was just a boy, his father departed the body, and he began to spend time in cremation grounds.
Is it because he has more of Shiva's divine thread in him, Brother Shankara? Because Shiva used to be the one at the ground of cremation grounds.
Well,
He's known for that
yes, well, he is known for that in
in
Varanasi
Hindu gods. Yes.
and other places. Yes, indeed, Sri Ramakrishna embodied both the Shiva and Vishnu
Parvati.
aspects. So it was in that Shiva aspect that he
I
embodied
see.
what became the full-blown Kali aspect, the living Kali within his body. At the end of his life, he pointed to his body and said, there are two here. The mother, which is a combination of Shiva's energy and this manifestation as Shakti, as Kali the mother, and her worshiper. There are two here, he said, pointing to his body, the mother and her worshiper. So Shiva and Vishnu, both there. And yes, if you remember, there was an incident also in his youth, mentioned in what you read earlier. There was a yatra, a performance.
Yeah.
And the actor that was supposed to play Shiva was not able to play the role. He became ill. So Sri Ramakrishna was dressed up to play the role.
Right.
Ashes were put on his body and his hair was made into Shiva's dreadlocks and so on. And
I remember reading that.
When that happened, he embodied Shiva. He became Shiva. And the villagers, the audience, was just overwhelmed. The whole performance came to a stop because there was Shiva in their midst, not just an actor playing Shiva. It was Shiva himself. And so this is the aspect of Sri Ramakrishna that that is comfortable in these burial and cremation grounds, and comfortable with the ghosts. Sri Ramakrishna later in life, we'll read this much later on in the gospel, he went to Varanasi and was on the river and had the vision of Shiva and the mother. The mother, because it's said when you die, leave the body in Varanasi, that you attain liberation. And here's how it happened according to Sri Ramakrishna's vision. Mother would lean over and untie the knots of the heart, those remaining things that were binding that soul, that Atman, if you will, to this plane of existence. And Shiva would lean over and whisper the mantra of liberation in the corpse's ear. So that person would be liberated and would no longer need to take human form. So this is, but of course, this is Sri Ramakrishna's vision, and it happened much later in his life on a pilgrimage to Varanasi. Anything else from anyone before Ima reads on? All right, dears. I just want everyone to be fully aware that Sri Ramakrishna was not in any way frightened or he was not, he was perfectly comfortable spending the night in meditation there. And his weeping, as it's said at the end of this, he would come back to his room, his eyes red with what appeared to be a weeping. And he was weeping to the mother to grant him her full vision, not just the knowledge of her that comes through the worship, but the full vision. So we'll hear the rest of it, the first vision of Kali.
While meditating, he would lay aside his cloth and his Brahminical thread.
He would. You said she.
He would. No, he would lay aside his cloth and his Brahminical thread.
In other words, he would be stark naked.
Yes. Explaining this strange conduct, he once said to Hriday, "Don't you know that when one thinks of God, one should be freed from all ties? From our every birth, we have the 8 fetters of hatred, shame, lineage, pride of good conduct, fear, secretiveness, caste, and grief. The sacred thread reminds me that I am a Brahmin and therefore superior to all. When calling on to the mother, one has to set aside all such ideas." Hriday thought his uncle was becoming insane. As his love for God deepened, he began either to forget or to drop the formalities of worship. Sitting before the image, he would spend hours singing the devotional songs of great devotees of the mother, such as Kamalakanta and Ramprasad. Those rhapsodical songs describing the direct vision of God only intensified Sri Ramakrishna's longing.
By the by, other people who heard because of Sri Ramakrishna's voice, as it is said in that wonderful hymn, "I Come to the Garden Alone," he speaks and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing. Well, when Sri Ramakrishna sang, it was absolutely entrancing to anyone who heard it. So he would sing these songs of Kamalakanta, Ramprasad, and others, Kabir, and so on, and others. The crowds would gather outside the shrine at times just to hear him sing. But of course, the other temple priests thought he'd gone completely mad and tried to persuade Mathur to have him dismissed, as we'll hear. So anyway, read that again, please, dear.
Sure.
By the way, the word is lineage.
Lineage, okay, sure, I'll remember that, brother. Thank you, Brother Shankara. As his love for God deepened, he began either to forget or to drop the formalities of worship. Sitting before the image, he would spend hours singing the devotional songs of great devotees of the mother, such as Kamalakanta and Ramprasad. Those rhapsodical songs describing the direct vision of God only intensified Sri Ramakrishna's longing. He felt the pangs of a child separated from its mother. Sometimes in agony, he would rub his face against the ground and weep so bitterly that people, thinking he had lost his earthly mother, would sympathize with him in his grief. Sometimes in moments of skepticism, he would cry, "Art thou true, mother, or is it all fiction, mere poetry without any reality?"
Now, please note that even Sri Ramakrishna, the master of the universe, in this spiritual journey that he was on, this sadhana, would have moments of skepticism. Skepticism is another word for doubt. So let us not be at all hard on ourselves when we do feel skeptical, when we feel doubtful, when we have feelings very similar to those that Haima will read again, that Sri Ramakrishna was experiencing as what is called skepticism. We must be self-loving and self-forgiving, that it is completely natural for our left mind, before it's fully conquered, to raise these issues and doubts. And as Adi Shankaracharya points out in the last 2 chapters of the Viveka Chudamani, his guidebook, he says those things will come up in the minds of even the illumined. And Sri Krishna very adroitly comments on this in the Gita. He says that kind of stuff flows into the mind of the seer, of the illumined, but does not contaminate it any more than a dirty brown river flowing into the ocean contaminates the ocean. But it appears there. It appears there, nevertheless. So, Haima, please read those lines again.
Sure. Sometimes in agony, he would rub his face against the ground and weep so bitterly that people, thinking he had lost his earthly mother, would sympathize with him in his grief. Sometimes, in moments of skepticism, he would cry, "Art thou true, mother? Or is it all fiction, mere poetry without any reality? If thou dost exist, why do I not see thee? Is religion a mere fantasy? And art thou only a figment of man's imagination?" Sometimes he would sit on the prayer carpet for 2 hours like an inert object. He began to behave in an abnormal manner, most of the time unconscious of the world. He almost gave up food, and sleep left him altogether.
He almost
But
gave up food. As a
gave
matter
up
of
food.
he almost gave up food, and sleep left him altogether.
Left him altogether.
And during this time, it was only this sadhu that would see his condition, that would come to him and force some food down his throat. Otherwise, he probably would not have eaten at all, and God knows what would have happened to him. But this sadhu would force food down his throat. And Sri Ramakrishna highly praised that sadhu later for being this considerate and insistent that this devotee of Kali not perish. So he almost gave up food, and sleep left him altogether. Okay, dear.
But he did not have to wait very long. He has thus described his first vision of the mother. "I felt as if my heart were being squeezed like a wet towel. I was overpowered with a great restlessness and a fear that it might not be my lot to realize her in this life. I could not bear the separation from her any longer. Life seemed to be not worth living. Suddenly, my glance fell on the sword that was kept in Mother's temple. I determined to put an end to my life. When I jumped up like a madman and seized it, suddenly the Blessed Mother revealed herself."
Now, that's a real sword. It's still there. That sword is still there. It's a real sword. He really could have cut his throat with it. So it was in this moment of extremis, when he was just about to take his own life because it was not worth living, without is separated from her, that she revealed herself. And this helps explain those metaphorical stories that we hear about people whose teacher plunges their head under the river or the lake and keeps it there until they're just about to perish. And then when they pull their head up, they say, well, how did that feel? Oh, I was dying for a breath, for a breath of air. And the Guru says, when that is your experience of God, when you simply cannot live without that experience of God, then it will happen. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, having done this, even though those stories are told, Sri Ramakrishna can share what he achieved, what he accomplished with us. That's why he is called the refuge. That's why it says what it says in Breaker of This World's Chain. That hymn that's recited each evening at Arati. He can share this with you. And what he says is, practice just a little, and someone will come forward to help you. And by that someone, he means the mother herself. Because he has become that mother that will do that. So he was about to really, he says, I jumped up like a madman and seized the sword and was about to take my own life. And at that moment, Mother revealed herself. So please read on, dear.
Sure. I determined to put an end to my life when I jumped up like a madman and seized it. Suddenly, the Blessed Mother revealed herself. The buildings with their different parts, the temple, and everything else vanished from my sight, leaving no trace whatsoever. And in their stead, I saw a limitless, infinite, effulgent ocean of consciousness. As far as the eye could see, the shining billows were madly rushing at me from all sides with a terrific noise to swallow me up. I was panting for breath. I was caught in the rush and collapsed unconscious. What was happening in the outside world, I did not know. But within me, there was a steady flow of undiluted bliss, altogether new, and I felt the presence of the Divine Mother. On his lips, when he regained consciousness of the world, was the word Mother.
So let's just pause there. Is there any
Mhm.
comment or question or concern from anyone about what we've just heard? I mean, and there's no one is asking you to believe this as an article of faith. What we can do is take this into our prayer, contemplation, concentration, and meditation and see if it resonates with us, if indeed someone does come forward to help us. Because now Sri Ramakrishna and the Mother are one. This is what is meant by when he regained outward consciousness. All he could say was Ma, Ma, Ma. Mother, Mother, Mother. So any comment or question or concern that needs to be addressed about any of this that we've read, this absolutely startling story.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
just some clarification on that. Someone come forwards to help us. So that could be in different forms, right? To understand better or practice methods. What are some of the ways in which the help comes?
Well, first is the guru. The guru is the face of the divine, the apostolic succession. The face of Thakur Ma is the guru. So there's this human being who can give us not only instruction that allows us to go forward, but consolation and reassurance as we go forward that we are making the right kind of progress if we stay in touch with the guru. Otherwise, it can come to you in dreams, visions, a voice that's within you that is absolutely unmistakable. You learn to recognize that voice. It's not a voice that is generated by your left mind. It is a voice generated by the heart center. It is that heart center speaking to you in those tones. It may come in the form of images. It may come in the form of music if you're inclined toward that. You may hear music that leads you forward, leads you deeper into concentration and meditation. So there are many, many, many ways. As we read the testimony of the saints in Love Poems from God, 12 illumined souls, their testimony as interpreted and reported to us by Daniel Ladinsky, we see that there are many, many forms in which this comes. And as I said earlier, if one feels doubtful or skeptical from time to time because nothing seems to be happening, well, that's perfectly normal. And when I brought this up, this was years and years ago, perhaps 2007, 2008, something like this. When I brought that up to Swami Sarvadevananda, we were in the Hollywood Temple together after our morning arati and meditation. And I said to him, Swami, I don't seem to be getting anywhere at all. I just am experiencing what I'm calling mud mind. It's like slogging through a swamp, pulling one foot up and putting it up in front of the other with great difficulty. And he said, pay no attention to it. Pay no attention to it. Just continue your practices. It will pass. And indeed it did. And I had, not so very long after that, a truly wonderful experience of Sri Ramakrishna. This is we must not despair, although we feel doubtful, we are self-forgiving and self-loving about it, but just be persistent with your practice. As Swami Prabhavananda said, the second and third steps in his instruction for meditation are patience and perseverance.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Brother, when you said stay in contact with the guru, does that have to be physically in the same location?
No.
Or can it happen through other means?
Oh, it does happen in other means. It's going on continuously. The relationship with Guru is the eternal teacher. So the eternal teacher, is said in a song, he's alive in me still after all these years. His heart is afire because he is free. His clear eyes show what it is to see beyond the pages of any book and know the truth wherever he looks. And that means when he looks at you from a distance, or distance, time and distance are simply, as Einstein pointed out, time and space are illusory. even from the point of view of modern physics. Time and space, from one point of view within physics, is illusory. And of course, the scriptures have been telling us this for millennia. So you can have a physical experience of a guru. Swami Sarvadevananda will be here sometime later this year. And of course, Swami Sarvapriyananda is coming in July. Swami Sarvapriyananda is clearly a face of the divine presence. Otherwise, he would not draw such crowds. People flock to him because they receive something just being in his presence, let alone when he begins to speak to them. And so just for all of you, Swami will arrive here July 7th, and you'll be here for a weekend spiritual retreat, Saturday, July 8th, and Sunday, July 9th, and he'll fly away on the morning of Monday, July 10th. So put that on your calendar so that you can make a reservation, because we're going to have to do this by reservation. Though I think we're headed toward renting a space that will accommodate everyone who wishes to come. We can't know that for sure. So we're working on it. But Glenn, people have all kinds of experiences of the eternal teacher.
So would I already have this guru and not know it yet?
Yes.
Because I feel the action of the guru in my life. It's just I haven't had the physical encounter yet.
And may not. Some people do not have the physical encounter in a particular lifetime. But if you keep working on it, from our conversation, I can say there's every likelihood that you will have the experience and the necessary that will free you from having to take another human birth. So just keep working at it, and just keep yearning for that teacher. This is the second of the graces. Mumukshatvam is the Sanskrit word, which Sri Ramakrishna translated into Bengali, that comes to us in English as yearning. Yearn for that experience and vision of the eternal teacher. The eternal teacher is none other than God. These teachers are just a face of the divine being that appears to us. 50 years ago, 1973, the eternal teacher glanced at me. Not a word was said. My eyes filled with tears. He's alive in me still after all these years. And so that really happened in February of 1973. It was fortunate that I had the physical encounter with my teacher. But it was because I had been praying for it for something on 4 years, going on 4 years before that. From 1968 to 1972, I was praying pretty regularly for a teacher. So in February of 1973, Swami Prabhavananda drew me to him.
So if I contact you in private, can we discuss any path forward that you would suggest on this that I might need to take?
Surely, of course. Please do schedule a time to meet with me. All you have to do is phone me. I think you have my phone number. I'm sure you have my phone number, because I have yours.
I talked to you yesterday.
All right. So anything else from anyone about this? The key idea is here that Sri Ramakrishna can share with us all of his spiritual treasures, all of them, without exception. Everything that he achieved for us. O merciful, if we take any hold upon God in our prayer, it is by thy grace alone, since all thine austerities were practiced for our sake. How great was thy sacrifice, freely choosing thy birth in this prison, our iron age, to unchain us and set us free. That is why Sri Ramakrishna came. That's what we're reading about in this gospel. And if you yearn for that, then something in the way of a qualified teacher will appear. That is the third grace. Human birth is the first. This yearning for liberation, for self-realization is the second grace. The third grace is a qualified teacher. And that will happen if you yearn for it. I mean, when I give you my personal testimony, I'm only one among hundreds that I've known personally. Those people who were part of the Vedanta Society of Southern California over all the decades that I was there, from February of 1973 until August of 2010. It's a long time. I knew literally hundreds of people who were walking this path with the guidance of teacher, the eternal teacher. Anything else from anyone? Good. Okay, read those last few lines again, please, Haima, and then read on.
Okay, sure. Sure, Brother Shankara. Let me go back. As far as the eye could see, that's EYE, I could see the shining billows were madly rushing at me from all sides with a terrific noise to swallow me up. I was panting for breath. I was caught in the rush and collapsed unconscious. What was happening in the outside world, I did not know. But within me, there was a steady flow of undiluted bliss, altogether new, and I felt the presence of the Divine Mother. On his lips, when he regained consciousness of the world, was the word Mother. Next subheading is God intoxicated state.
Okay, before we move on, is there anything else that anyone would like to contribute, or any concern or question you'd like to raise about this? This was a watershed event in Sri Ramakrishna's life. He said, altogether new. Now, he had experienced bliss from the time of his childhood. He had his first experience of a kind of samadhi when he was 6 years old. Again, when he was 10, and on throughout. So he'd had all kinds of blissful experiences. But when he said these billows were rushing at him to swallow him up, who is the him that he's talking about? He's talking about the small, the sense of separate being, the false sense of doer, the I consciousness that is the small I, the ego. And so when he emerged from this, that was no longer operative. So anything else from anyone? I can't talk now. I'm in class. So I think we'll just leave it at that.
Okay,
We
sure, Brother
won't
Shankara.
start this God intoxicated state
Okay,
this week.
I will stop right there. We have 5 more minutes if any comments or.
Well, what if there's comments or questions, but what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to read the last few paragraphs over again.
Okay, sure.
The reason for that is this is, as I said, it's a watershed event.
Yes.
The incarnation of the master of the universe coming into his own as the possessor of Shakti. He was no longer going to be the gunas were, he was going to be, as it says in the evening hymn, above the gunas 3. Knowledge divine, not flesh. That's what he became. Though he remained in the flesh for some years later, his fleshly being became almost like a hologram, as we'll discuss sometime later.
I have a comment.
Yes, please, dear.
I have a comment, Brother Shankara. We may not become, maybe some will become like Ramakrishna, but some of us may not become, but at least we can feel the footprints, like in Christianity, there is the footprints of our chosen ideal when we have pure heart and faith in divine. That's what I believe in, footprints. We feel it all the time.
Well, that's a very good metaphor.
Yes,
and none of us are going to become like Sri Ramakrishna.
exactly.
We will.
But we can feel that divineness, like
Yes.
he's with us. He's helping you, holding your hand or carrying you when you can't walk. Things like that, you feel it in your life.
This is why he's called the refuge.
Yes.
This is why he's called the refuge.
It happens slowly over time as we practice.
And you will have marvelous experiences
Pure heart
that
and
are
faith.
gifts of the divine.
Yes.
That he can share with us. All his austerities were practiced for our sake, so that he could pass on the fruit of those austerities to us. I think we'll just leave it there. We won't read again.
Okay. And I will be out next 2 Tuesdays. I'm sorry about that. I'll have guests and I'll be out of town here and there. And so I'll send you an email with all the details of where I left off.
Well,
I
think what it is we're going to start with this subheading, God intoxicated state.
God intoxicated state. That's where we will be starting. But I will send you all the details in the email so that it will be there.
Somebody else can serve as reader. Balakrishna, or if he's with us these next 2 weeks, Bala could serve as our reader if he knows where we are. And I'm sure he does.
I will send you the page number and PDF and the lines and where we start, everything, where we stopped. Okay. That way you will know what it is, where we are.
Balaji, will you be able to read the next couple of weeks?
Yes, I think so. I don't have any plan.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll just rely on Balaji unless something happens.
Brother Shankara,
yes,
God willing, I can be back up if somebody else is needed. I have the book as well.
Okay, very good, dear. You're a very good reader too, of course. I just want to spread the wealth around to those who I know are, like yourself and Haima, sincere students. So anything else from anyone before we wrap it up for this evening? All right, dears. Dearly beloved, Om Asato Ma Satkamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amrutangamaya, Abir Abir Moiti. This is an ancient, ancient prayer to the eternal teacher. We can direct it to Sri Ramakrishna or to Christ or to whoever we feel is our chosen ideal. And the Sanskrit goes this way. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya. Oh, dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless deception to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. And like the Lord's Prayer or the Jesus Prayer in Christianity, if you only prayed this one prayer and you prayed it over and over with relentless sincerity and dedication, you may believe that that prayer would be answered. Not from without, from within. The truth that exists in the eternal teacher exists within you. And that is what manifests as the eternal teacher in dream, in vision, or if we're fortunate enough in this lifetime, as a actual physical human being. So, any final thought or comment from anyone? All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Oh, dearly beloved, make it so. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears. Until tomorrow night, when we'll have a reading and discussion of Bhagavad Gita. Then on Saturday, of course, there's the discussion of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, a reading and discussion of the Yoga Sutras. And then this coming Sunday, the topic of the talk will be, does a karma yogi need to meditate? All right. Until next time, dears. Jai Shri Ramakrishna Jai Ma.